Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. Take two here. What I wanted to share with you on the 25th day of December here, 2020, was my recollections and my memories of what it was like to be in nature and why I have a desire to be in nature. That is to, as a child, and then as I gotten older, and things that intrigued me. And one of those things simply is me and my brother lived in a house in North Carolina, and behind the house there was a brook or a spring, or some call it a creek. And me and my brother would be back there for hours, even though we was on someone else's property. We were able to be on that property because we asked for permission to be back there. And the gentleman that owned that property had what we called he had dairy cows on his property. If you remember, if some of you in America remember, there were Jersey cows, which are what I call a light tan color cows that are allowed to be on properties, and then eventually they were milk for human consumption. So it's interesting that what took place is, even at that age, to be in the backyard, and we'd be back there for a couple of hours playing with salamanders, whatever we wanted to do. We were back there. We would actually encounter what I would call the beautiful trees that are located in North Carolina, the hardwood trees, that are different than where I'm living here in South Carolina. Mainly here where I live at, there are pine trees. Pine trees are a different type of tree. They're not a hardwood tree. They're able to basically, in the past, they used to get what they call the oil that came out of those trees. The tar would be used for turpentine, and turpentine was used for health remedies in the past. Most people are not aware of that. Still is. Turpentine oil still comes from pine trees. But the things that what I enjoyed was simply, as many days I would be after playing with myself, that is by backyard, throwing the football back and forth up, pretending as boys would do. I would lay down and watch the puffy clouds go across the blue sky. And I still have memories of that. I wish that I spent more time doing that at that time. So I live here in a city called Aiken, South Carolina. There's some property here that you can go as like a park that is for humans and horses, and there's over 2,200 acres here, and there are trees in the back and trees on that property. So I enjoy going back there and just spending my time by myself. And I have also in the backyard where I live at is a fence where I didn't want anyone to disturb me, was to be in the backyard, actually laying on the ground and enjoying the sun and enjoying the birds. And part of the reason why I enjoy the birds is they bring me peace. Their little songs, especially in the springtime, are just delightful to hear. Something that we take for granted. It actually helps me with what we would call melancholy or depression sometimes, that people would be outside listening to birds, their little songs. And sometimes I think of they're like little angels per se, that they share their little songs back and forth. And a couple of days ago, I was able to catch a couple Carolina wrens. I'll show you what they look like here. Carolina wrens are the state bird of South Carolina. They're not exactly the most beautiful bird out there. Actually, they are what I would call unique. They have a unique personality about them. And they are what I call perky as they're outside. And so they sing their songs, and they can do many different things. Different songs they do. This is what they look like. Again, not a super cute bird, not what I would call like the cardinal or the blue jay, but the guy, the boy, the male he can sing. He's very strong vocals. You can hear him in the mornings, early in the morning. I can hear him, and the way their tail is always up like this sometimes, and they're bouncing along. They're always looking for what I call a place. They don't like boxes, but they like other places that they'll look anywhere in the world to habitate and have eggs for their babies, that they will also, they'll go in a boot and create a nest. That's what they'll do. So it's just kind of interesting to see these things, because a lot of times it encourages me, because the world has become so technological in so many ways, even since I was a boy. As a boy, I can remember when we lived in North Carolina that there was no private line for a phone service at that point. In other words, it was a party line, and so you would catch someone who actually on the phone, and if you had an emergency or such and such, you would ask them to get off so they could do this such and such. It's really, really weird as I think about that. It wasn't much of a big deal. I do remember that there was a particular neighbor that did talk, a woman, and sometimes we'd have to tell, look, we need to get on the phone line here because there's emergency such and such, and they would do that. Today, the phone is used far more than ever, even in my own life. Mainly the only time I really got involved with the phone was when I was interested in a girl, began in my teenage years. And so I would actually communicate that way. But anyway, back to the story of that time period, people were more sociable. That is, people would come to people's houses without even announcing they were coming. That's really today that's foreign, very foreign. And people would go for rides. That is, they would just ride in the car on a Sunday afternoon and just ride out in the countryside. So there was what I call, even though my parents were busy, that is, both worked, and they would go out sometimes. Sometimes my parents naturally were involved in religion, in the church. So my mom would be put in a situation that basically, I cannot believe how my dad did these things, but my dad would invite people over to the house. Naturally, he was an extrovert, and my mom was more of an introvert, following my dad's lead. But she got frustrated sometimes because basically it put her in a pinch if, and I understand that, because simply she'd have to cook, and she didn't know what she had at home, to cook. And sometimes my mom would actually leave after Sunday school or church and go start a meal before they came over within another hour. So it's just unique in a lot of ways. And to remember those days. And so back to the times that simply we was back in the woods, we had two neighbors that were pretty close. We would go walk on their property, and they both had what I call dairy cows, and they milked their cows. And I remember one of the older lady, who actually kept us after school for an hour and a half to 2 hours after we got off the bus. We were allowed to go walking on our property, and she told us if we got lost, always follow the cow path back to the house, because that would be the way to lead us back home. And they had a creek on their property also. And I'd give just precious times that I had to be out in the woods, not realizing that today I yearn for that. I yearn for um, just being out in nature, being away from people, and the energy that people put off, their vibes, especially at work. It's changed dramatically in the last, well, probably 20 years, if not more, and how people are and how their attitudes reflect just the way they work. Um, Not all people are bad. I don't mean that, but I don't really enjoy going shopping anymore. I don't enjoy being in the grocery store with people. I don't enjoy, just just bad vibes. And then people wearing masks all over the place. You know, this is ridiculous. This is not natural. This is your nose and this is your mouth, and they're used for, breathing to your lungs. And people are wearing masks, afraid of something they can't see, and they think they're going to get sick. And the only reason why we get sick, to be honest with you, is our immune system is protecting itself. That's why you get a fever. That's why you throw up. You know, that's why, those things happen in your life, because simply is your body's smart enough saying something is in your body and needs to be out of you. And I remember the terrible time that I had in Mexico City when someone apparently put some kind of water on a product that is the food that I ate, and I got terribly sick. And my body knew that this was some type of bacteria or whatever. It wasn't supposed to be in my body, and it expelled it from my body. And I had high fever. I had a fever, such and such. And for the first, 24 hours, it was rough for me. And it caused me to miss just about all of what was planned for me to be there. I worked for the first 2 days, such and such. I think we got there on Saturday. I think we would participate in the Sunday morning church, and then Monday, such and such. But the point simply is, your body is incredibly smart, folks, incredibly. And, but you're being deceived. But back to the story of simply being in nature simply is that just to hear birds singing, communicating with one another, just to hear the wind and to feel the air in your hair, and to have the sun on your face, that's all natural. All that's natural. And that's a natural stimuli. You see, that helps you to be peaceful with yourself, if you desire to be peaceful with yourself. But yet today, everything is artificial. Our food is artificial. Television is artificial. What I'm doing here on the internet is artificial. It's a way of communicating, but it's not person to person. It's not with someone right here, sitting here in my room when you're talking, which is organic, which is what is so important. And this is what's so sad about the situation that we live in. Although those of us who are pursuing the truth are few and far between each other. That is, there are few of us. We're talking about the few. We're not talking about the many. And Jesus spoke of that. He spoke of only the few. He didn't speak of the many, the broad path. He spoke of the narrow path. And yet it has nothing to do with church neither, you see, or religion. That's man's way of trying to handle the situation. So, and in some ways, simply is if you look at it, nature itself is our sanctuary, where we can be in nature. So, and that's why I enjoy even going to feed the ducks and the geese over at a park, because it changes my whole outlook on life, and helps me to benefit from that, you see. So, I didn't just plan to do this a long deal here. I just wanted to share, but it's incredibly sad um, when I think about it that I don't know of anybody around me that does this. I don't know of anybody. I don't know people. Yeah, I know people who go walking in the woods. Some go to take their dogs back there. Some go to basically just to get away from the house, so to speak. There are not, when I see people out walking, it's mainly women. It's very few men. I see a couple once in a while, some men, but it's mainly women who are even actually walking in the park here where I live at here in Aiken. And it's strange how the world has changed since my lifetime here, and I'm able to see that because simply as I'm still alive, and then I've been brought up in the 1960s and early 70s, and then see what's taking place now. I'm not saying things were perfect back then either; they wasn't, but there was a different way of living. Maybe that's because it simply is that I was a child and now I'm an adult. Well, that's possible. But I remember me and my brother one time, to give you an idea, this we would play in nature and and have sticks. We would do such and such. We weren't allowed to start a fire or such and such, but we would play in the leaves, the leaves that would fall. Um, we would play in those. We would just build them up and pile them up and then jump into them, as you see as dogs do these days sometimes. And how again how close we were to nature. And then when it would snow in North Carolina, we would be outside when it usually stopped, and usually it was 3 or 4 inches of rain out there. I'm sorry, 3 or 4 inches of snow, not rain. It would be a mess, wouldn't it? And we were allowed to play as long as we wanted to until our feet got cold, and then we would have to come in because we wore tennis shoes out in the snow. But we would build a snowman. We would put a carrot for a nose and all these kind of things. It was just amazing. And we roll this thing across such and such, set it up, put another one on top, and that was a delightful time as a boy doing these things. And when it does snow here where I live at in South Carolina, I never see anyone. In fact, I shared this one time before that as an adult, I was over 50 years old. I'd be out here building a snowman, and I saw kids, and no kids wanted to go out and play in the snow. I found that really odd that children don't even play in the snow. Um, and so you're missing out on something very important. And again, that's natural. That's all natural. And today, I know this simply is here in South Carolina. It may have been probably the upper part of the mountains of South Carolina. I'm sure they got snow yesterday and last night, since it rained here, a very cold rain. And also, this simply is that they had snow up there. So I'm sure they're out sledding around, doing those type of things, which is, this is the first time. I'm sure it's the first time that they have had snow on the ground on Christmas. A picturesque type of deal, like a not like a postcard, but a Christmas card when we see kids that are playing in the snow and got a sled and all those type of things that we associate with Christmas and the wonderful time of Christmas. Even though simply this is this time period, we're looking at 25th day of Christmas. I'm sorry, 25th day of December. It being this the first part of winter. Winter doesn't stop till actually March here, and I know that the southern part, as I encountered a friend from Australia, that the weather's totally opposite there when Christmas comes. So it doesn't even make any sense because there's no association with snow with Christmas there. Completely different perspective because it's the opposite it is here. So they're encountering spring there in the South America areas and in Australia and in Southern Africa and all those areas. that are encountering spring, and but we're encountering winter here. And part of the bias I see sometimes with the media is that most of us is exclusive for the northern hemisphere. You see, because more people live here in the northern hemisphere than they do in the southern hemisphere. So there's always a bias in what's happening in that particular world. And you find out simply is that most wars that take place, that is, are not in the southern hemisphere. They're actually in the northern hemisphere. There are very few wars that actually take place in the southern hemisphere. I sometimes wonder about that. Well, part of it might be simply is that maybe people get along. Maybe there simply is that their leaders are not disposed of what I would call wanting to kill one another. And Australia itself and New Zealand are kind of far apart, and so there's really no need for war there. And same way with South America, very few wars have been there when you think about it. The only wars I remember, if you talk about South America, is simply to do with independence in those countries from Spaniards. But I've kind of got off my subject today. Simply is again, and the point simply is that spend as much time as you can in nature. It's a calming influence. It does your heart good. When I'm outside hearing these birds sing, and just those are precious times, just to hear those birds sing and feel the vibration of them as they live their lives here on this planet. And you're allowed to, if you choose to, spend time in nature. And I encourage people to do that. It's to your well-being. It's to your well-being spiritually also. And the way to silence the outside voices that keep bothering you in your mind. A lot of that has to do is to be out in nature so you can drown out those negative thoughts that encounter in your lives. To do with this, that's one thing is really good to be out in nature. And I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed in many ways to have a house, to have a fence in the backyard that no one knows what I'm doing, except that simply I'm enjoying myself. And I have a deck also in the back to enjoy, but I really actually enjoy just simply being there, being present in the, as they would say, in the now. And that's very encouraging in a lot of ways. And I want to encourage you to do this too. And don't make excuses, especially as you get older. Many people make excuses. They don't feel like it. Well, you're getting older. So how do you know you're going to feel better the next day? You see, so you just need to be out and enjoying those in that time. That's the most precious time you can be involved with in your whole life. And especially when you're getting older, it's important because simply is that you're by yourself. So you're no longer well, I'm by myself, but I'm saying simply that you have time and you have no excuses to not be outside. So anyway, I hope you have a great day and Merry Christmas to all out there. And remember simply is this is an opportunity to help yourself and be at peace with yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye.